Hello everyone, and welcome to this first Wooclap open training session in English. I'm very happy to be with you today. Thank you for being here, first of all. I'm Kieran Farrell, Customer Success Manager at Wooclap. And I'm also joined by my colleague Adeline that is here today that's going to help me with the moderation of this and to give me some of your questions. And my colleague Charlotte's also available in the chat and will help you with any of your questions throughout this session. And yeah, please feel free to ask any of your questions in the chat, and I'll put some time aside during the presentation as well as at the end to answer all of your questions. Put the stream on. So here's a little overview of today's session. I'll start by giving you a bit of a context about Wooclap, and once I'm just going to shut off the notifications. There we go. I'll start by giving you a bit of a context about Wooclap. And right after that, I'll be giving you the opportunity to experience the tool on the participants' end, so the students' end. I'll show you how to use Wooclap to enhance participation then, whether it's in person or at a distance. And then I'll go over how to create your interactive content and which functionalities to activate in favor. And finally, throughout this presentation, as well as at the end, I have a bit of time for some interesting use cases on how to maximize your use of Wooclap and maximize as well as interaction. Of course, I'll have some time for your questions, as I said. Now, to contextualize a bit, for a bit of context, Wooclap is first and foremost a pedagogical tool that was founded on cognitive science research from this last decade in order to really rethink the way that we learn. And amongst this research is the theory of the French neuroscientist Stanislas Dehaene, according to whom there are four fundamental pillars of learning, which are the following that you can see on this slide. So the first is attention. We know that in order to learn, you need to be 100% focused, and that distractions take away from this focus. So how do I captivate my audience's attention, and how do I keep on to that attention? The next one is active engagement. In order to remember new content, it isn't enough to passively listen to the person presenting. It's important to emit your hypotheses, to experiment with the new notions in order to fully understand them. The third pillar is feedback. Feedback, of course, allows you to assess your learning, and we know that it's most effective when it comes right after the input that you've given. And finally, consolidation. In order to learn, one must review the content, and we're going to see how Wooclap can be a valuable tool before, during, and after presentations. So yeah, we'll go into more details later on how Wooclap can address these four pillars that we mentioned. And at this point, I think you've understood that Wooclap will be a great asset to you in creating interactive content that you can then incorporate into your existing presentations. So the idea is you really structure your courses around this interactive content to encourage participation, again, whether it's in person or at a distance. And Wooclap goes even further than that, as it'll allow you to comment on the input that you're receiving live. And it also gives you access to reports in order to follow your students' progress. And so they also have an idea of where they are in their learning. Now, just quickly, before I give you a chance to be a student and experience the tool from their end, I think it's important that to show you some of the resources available to you that you can look into after this session. We have a great YouTube page with a lot of tutorials about simple uses of Wooclap, as well as integrations that we have. We have educational tips that are very interesting on our blog, as well as a help center that has most of the answers to the questions you come across when you start using our tool. Now's the moment where I'm going to give you the chance to experience the tool on the students' end. Now, hopefully, there's a link that will be shared with you in the chat, and you can go ahead and click that link, or you can also scan the QR code that you can see on your on the screen that I'm presenting. Now, I'm just checking how many people are in this event so I can wait. So as you can see in the bottom right corner of my screen, I can see how many people are connecting to my event. so that I know when to move on with my interactive content. I know there's about 55 people, around 55 people in this event, so maybe I'll wait for the number to go up a bit. And no worries for those that weren't able to connect. The link will still be available in the chat. So I'm going to give that a little bit more time. Thank you all for connecting and your participation. And you'll see that all the notions that I was talking about will make a lot more sense once you start experiencing the tool. Great. Maybe wait till we get up to around 50. Almost there. I think 45 is good. Now we can go on with our interactive content. And our first question: where are you located on this map? My understanding, we have quite an international group here today, as you can see. So as you can see, I'm receiving all that input live. I see you're spread out throughout the world. Wow, what an international group we have today. Great, happy we could have all of you here. Again, at the bottom right of my screen, you can see that I can see how many people have answered out of the total amount of participants that I have on my event. Quite the international group indeed. It's great to see. Thank you for your participation. This is sort of similar to a ice-breaking question. It's good to use at the beginning of your interaction with your students, for example. It's good to get them start using the tool and interacting with it before you move on to the real questions of your course. So now I have about 40 answers in, and I'm not going to wait around too much so that we can have time for your questions down later. Thank you for your participation. Next question now. Have you ever used Wooclap? This is just a polling question. And again, as you can see, all the results are changing and appearing live as I'm receiving that input. I have view on the percentage of people per category, per answer, as well as the number that represents. See, I already have 32 out of 51 answers, so I can see that you're getting comfortable with using the tool. Thank you for your participation. See, a few of you have never used Wooclap. If you want any more information about Wooclap and using it in the future, some links will be made available to you in the chat where you can get that extra information. And for those of you that have already used Wooclap, I'm happy to have you here today, and hopefully you'll learn some new things about using it and some new interesting features for your next courses then. Great, I think I'm stabilizing there. We'll go on to our next question. Thanks again for participating. Now, this is a question to see those of you that were paying attention at the beginning of the context part. According to Stanislas Dehaene, just a quick reminder, he was the French neuroscientist that I mentioned earlier. How many pillars of learning are there? Was it 3, 4, 5, or 6? I see most people are going with answer number 2, which is 4 pillars. So yeah, 75% agreeing on 4 pillars there. And I won't make the suspense last too long. And now this will be interesting because you can see then I have the answers appearing live. And as I said, feedback is an important part and an important pillar of learning. So you'll see that once I choose on the left-hand side here to display the correct answer, it'll also be displayed on your interface, giving you direct feedback into whether your answer was good or not. So without further ado, here's the correct answer. Was 4. Congratulations to the 77% of you that I got the good answer. And now I'll move on to my last interactive question. Describe your experience working from home in one word. It should be an interesting one. I usually get very different opinions on this. You can already see the difference in the input that we're receiving. Challenging for some, cozy for others. So as you can see here, this is the word cloud way of showing the answers. It's quite a visual tool. I think using a word cloud is great when you're in a class and you're trying to get the input of the whole class. It could be hard to call on to all of your students, for example. So this is a visual way of getting everybody's input and being able to comment it as it's changing live. As you can see here on my left-hand side, I also have other display methods that I can choose from. So here, for example, I can choose to show my results in the result grid. So I'm going to have all my results here. For example, if I want to concentrate on one, then I can just go ahead and click on it and make it a bit bigger to bring it to the attention of my class. I can also show them in result list format. I won't concentrate on this one. And go back to the word cloud. And then once I'm comfortable with my answers, I also have the possibility of locking them in here. As you saw, the results were moving around a lot, and which can make it hard to comment on. So I have the possibility to lock in the answers so that it's a lot easier to comment. So thanks for your attention and your participation. And I'm happy now that you've seen what it's like to use on the student's end. I'll be happy to show you what it's like to create your own content. And we'll get started with that right away. There we go. So this page here is the page that you'll land on once you've connected to your Wooclap account. So as you can see here, I have a list of my previous events that's available to me. And I can go ahead and press on the Create Event button to start creating my interactive content. So here I'm going to create an event. We consider an event to be one individual class that you're teaching. So the first step to do is to rename your event here. So for example, here I'm going to name my event Geography Class South America. Let's imagine I'm a geography teacher here. So once that's done and I've validated that, the first thing that really pops and that you can see in the center of the screen are the different question types that I have. So here I'm going to go ahead and select a question type, for example, a multiple choice question to start off. For example, what is the capital of Brazil? Is it Rio de Janeiro? Is it Sao Paulo? Or is it Brasilia? Once I've put in my question and my free answers, I'm going to select the correct answer and press on save. So as you can see now, I've created my question and it's available here in the center. Then I can go on and create a second different type of question. For example, maybe a find on image, as we did earlier on. Where is Brazil located on this map? Then I can go in and import a map, a picture of a map, for example. And then I just have to add a zone with the correct answer. So I'm going to make it, it's not going to be perfect, but quasi-perfect, let's say. And then go ahead and save my question. So as you can see now, my two questions are here available in the central banner. I can reorder them if I wish to. And finally, maybe I'm going to use a third type of question, for example. This time, what I can do is I can import the question from another event that I have, because this one would take a bit of time to recreate. So I've created it prior to this. There you go. I've imported it now, and so now I have my free questions for my geography class. Again, I can reorder them if I want. And the third optional step you have is to change the code. If you remember correctly, I had a simplified code that I sent you, that was sent to you in the chat to participate in this. So I can modify the code here. So I could call it Geo South America, for example. There you go. And then the third and simple step. So if you remember, first step, rename my event, then create my question. Third and simple step, I can already go ahead and start my event with the start button. So I'm going to share in our chat again the code. There we go. And now I'm going to start the event and you'll be able to participate. I see some of you have already way ahead of me connected to the event. Don't hesitate if you want to try and experience it with both the phone and the computer. You can try scanning the QR code if you wish to, or doing it on your computer, as you please. I see already 20 participants now, 20 free participants. Great. Thank you again for all your participation. And thank you to my colleagues that I see are already quite active in the chat. And give it another few seconds that everyone can connect. And don't worry if you didn't manage to connect to this one. There's going to be plenty more interactive content that we'll go through together. Not to worry. So now I can move on to the first question that I've created, that we created here together. Here we go. What is the capital of Brazil? Brasilia. Maybe some of you that were paying the closest attention saw me tick the right answer when I was creating it. Stakes are high. There's very different opinions here. Again, in the bottom right corner, I can see how many answers I have out of the total. And here. And then whenever I'm ready, I have 31 out of 44. Let's say that's a number I'm comfortable, then I can go ahead and show the correct answer. And you're going to see again that the answer is going to be displayed on your screen. Again, I'm repeating it, but going to that pillar of the feedback pillar, and how important it is for a student to get that feedback right after he's given you the input. He'll be able to really assess his learning in that respect. So here I go. I got my 36 answers, and I can display the correct answer. And you'll see that then when I click the arrow and move on to my next question, I'm already moving on to the second question that we created together just a second ago. And it's just that easy, you know. I just created my question, launched my event, and as soon as you connected with that link or by scanning the QR code, I see most of you have your geography down here. And then for those of you, you'll see that also gave the wrong answer. It'll be displayed on your screen as well. So don't hesitate to give the wrong answer to see what that looks like as well. And now I can display the correct answer. So everything in this green zone that appears here would be considered correct. And unfortunately for those that were a bit too much to the right, they won't be getting any points. And then this is a different type of question. For example, match each country with its GDP per capita in US dollars. Not what I would consider a simple question. So you can see here on the left, I can see the most frequent answers that are being given, as well as how many answers I've received. So I'm at 17 answers right now. And how many of you will be right? It's a mystery. And I'll give you another second to answer this question. So you'll see it's important, and it's really something that we recommend, is to vary the type of questions that you're using in your class, just to give a different experience to your student and activate different ways of learning. So as you saw here, we had the multiple choice question, then we moved on to a pin on the image question, and then moving on to an association question now. So, and most frequent answers, and then correct answer. So most of you were more comfortable with Colombia's GDP than the others. And there are 5% correct answers in total. So congratulations to the top 5%. And there we go. So it was just that easy. Again, create your event, rename it, create your content, and then launch it. Now you're probably wondering, how do I integrate that creative content that I've just created into a presentation? As you saw at the beginning of my demo today, I was switching from slides to interactive content back to slides. So I'll show you just how to do that right now. So as you can see here, I have the Add Presentation button that appears. So I'm going to go ahead and press on Add Presentation, and I'm going to import from my documents a little PowerPoint on Geography class South America. One important thing to note is that when you import a file from PowerPoint, it's imported as a PDF or an image file, which means that it's static. Why I'm saying this is because if you have any animations or transitions that you've created in PowerPoint, they won't be supported on Wooclap. If you want to get around this, don't hesitate to say it in the chat, and we can send you some extra resources, because we do have a plugin available for PowerPoint. We do, however, recommend using it in Wooclap, as the user experience is really more friendly, and it's more of a fluid way of doing it. And you'll see exactly what I mean when I show you just how easy it is to integrate these questions directly into your presentation. So now I can go ahead, and now that my presentation is uploaded, press on Insert Questions here underneath. So this video that pops up is one that tells you how to do this, but I'm here to replace this video today. So I'll show you myself. So as you can see, I have my slides here, my little introduction then on South America. And for example, here I have a little slide on my GDP per country. Let's say I want to then test my students on this notion that I just showed before. So I'm going to put in my question on the GDP right after that slide. And then, for example, we're going to have a slide on Brazil. And then I can put my two questions just by dragging and dropping them from the right-hand side after my slide on Brazil. So once I've done that, I can go ahead and save my event. And now you'll see, just as it was at the beginning of the presentation, that I'm going to switch directly from my slides and my content, so my GDP, directly to my how to participate. You get everyone to connect, make sure you have the right amount of people in the bottom right, and then straight on to my interactive content, back to my slide, back to my interactive content, and so on. So just that easy. Insert the questions and then drag and drop them in the place that you want them inside of your presentation. So now that you know how to create your content and integrate it into presentations, I'm going to give you a bit of advice on which settings I think you should activate, and what are the different uses for all of these settings. So you can see the first setting that shows up under the presentation is the authentication button. So this authentication button, if you noticed, there was no need for you to authenticate today. You just had to scan or join through a link. You might want your students to have to connect in order to know who gave you the input, and you'll be able to trace it back to them. So in this case, you would activate authentication here, and then the different authentication methods would show up in a drop-down menu. So the first one would be email login, which would oblige them to connect through an email. You could have them connect through a social login, which would be Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, or Microsoft. Or, and this is conditional to if it's been put into place in your institution, there's also the possibility to connect through SSO, which means single sign-on, which would mean that students could connect with their university credentials. So here, in order to show you, I'm going to activate the last method, which is participant's username. So participant username is a connection method that you'll see very soon. When I reset the event, you'll have to connect just by giving the username of your choice. So the next button here that you can see underneath is results visible by default. So if you noticed while I was doing the presentation, as I was receiving your input, everything was changing live, and I was getting the answers, the bars were changing size. So this is because I had activated this. You might want to deactivate this. The reason you'd want to deactivate this is because students might be influenced by the answers of others. So if you deactivate this, you'll have the choice to then show the answers when you're ready to show them. And I'll deactivate it, and we can answer these questions again after. And so I'll be able to show you all of these things that we're activating and deactivating. So next is the I'm confused button. The I'm confused button allows you as a student on your interface to press on a button that will then show up on the presenter's interface, marking that you're confused and the number beside it. So the professor then has the information that 1 or 10 or 20 people are confused. And so it allows him to know about that without necessarily interrupting the flow of his presentation. And then he can go back to it, for example, and say, and repeat the notion and say, well, if you're no longer confused, then you could press on that button again. And as soon as the number has gone back to 0, he can move on with his course. Another way of interacting with students is through the messages that'll be possible. So you'll see up in the top left here beside the votes is a message tab. I can go ahead and go in that tab, and here I have some options available. I can go ahead and activate the wall of messages, and you'll be able to experience this in just a second. Allow students to like each other's messages, and allow images. Now, the wall of messages is a place where students openly ask questions, and you can then display those questions on your interface. And we'll see that in just a second when I give you another opportunity to participate in the event. Finally, another interesting one is the competition mode here. We know, and we were saying it at the beginning with the pillar of attention, that it can be difficult to captivate and hold on, especially to your students' attention. And one way of maybe getting them to be a bit competitive and get them back into that course is to activate the competition mode, which will enable you as a presenter to display a podium of the people that answered best. And now I'm going to reset the event. So resetting an event means that you put it back to all the results to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the event, and I'll make that link available to you. In the chat. So again, you can either then go on the link I sent in the chat, or you can connect through the QR code. And I'll wait for you all to connect. Maybe while you're connecting, I'll see if there's some questions for me in the chat. How do you lock the results if you can show the padlock during the presentation, Kieran? Absolutely. Happy to show you in just a second then. Another question was, will true-false questions be added at some time? I create multiple choice to cover that option, but it would be nice if it was a ready-to-go option. Yeah, thank you for your question. It isn't planned, I don't think, for it to be a ready option at this moment. But yeah, I think you have to continue doing it by creating that question yourself. But that is interesting, and I will communicate it to my the product manager, because we're always happy to get your feedback in interesting cases like this. I can see that 33 of you have connected now. I see a lot of you have already found the message wall, so I'm happy to see you're experimenting with some of the options that we've activated. Let's see what's going on in the message wall. So I see 10 of you at least, or 11, have found the messages. And now if I want to show those messages, I would just go ahead and press on the message wall. And can we integrate it with the desktop version of PowerPoint? Absolutely. And maybe some resources can be sent to you for this. I'm happy for your questions here. It might be easier if you want some extra resources to get them for some extra resources. It'll be easier in the chat of the live storm. Would it be interesting to use this tool to ask about who's going to win the Euro Championship, as it's not going to be Germany? As it won't be France either, I'd rather not ask the question. I'm still a bit disappointed. All right, so I can see that you're all connected now, and I can go on with my interactive content. So I'm just going to go back to then my first question. What is the capital of Brazil? So as you can see now, and if you remember, I deactivated results visible by default. So last time around when we had this question, the bars were going up and down, and so now I have the option when I'm ready to display the results, and then when I'm ready to display the correct answer as well. And so I see I have 24 out of 37 answers now. So as you can see, now I have the choice to press to display the results. So they're still going to show live now. And then display the correct answer, which was Brasilia. Now also, if you remember, we activated the I'm confused button earlier on. Now, if you want to look for that on your interface, don't hesitate to try to press the I'm confused button, and you'll see that it's changing. I see a bunch of you have already found it there, and you can see now it's changing on my interface. So it's giving me that information that some of my audience needs some extra clarification on some terms and notions. See some extra predictions on the Euro. And don't worry, after this, I'll take a bit of time to answer your questions as well. Going back to our answers, most of them correct. And finally, let's see if we've gotten more answers to this, and I'll take a bit of time to look at some of the questions. Could drop-down questions be integrated as well, where there are a couple of blanks in a sentence and students choose between answers already programmed, because fill in the blank requires spelling from the students, and that is not always the case. Now, Adeline, correct me if we have a fill in the blank option for questions. I don't believe it has a drop-down menu option yet.
Yes, that's correct.
So yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that drop-down option, but it's a very interesting feedback. Thank you, and I will be sure to communicate it. And again, no, I think more of you. So we've gone from 5% correct to 56% correct. So happy to see I have everyone's focus. Now again, I have forgotten, but there was that that question that was asked to me about the padlock earlier on. So as you can see here, at the bottom of my screen, here just beside the trophy is a padlock. So as soon as I press on this, it's gonna lock in all my answers so that they don't move around anymore. And if you remember, this is especially valuable with questions like the word cloud, where things are really moving around a lot and sometimes difficult to comment. And finally, the moment everyone was waiting for is the gamification mode. So you remember we activated gamification, which means now I can show a podium of the top players with Joe in first place. So this is my top 3 podium. As I said, with every question, on the left-hand side, I have the display options. So here I've shown the top 3, but I can also show the top 5. It's quite a tight, so, and then the top 10. And the top 20. And there we go. Thank you all for your participation. It's much appreciated. Is there a way of telling the participants their answer is correct? Now, if you remember when you were giving the answers, when you were answering on your phone, when I go from results to correct answer, that's being displayed on the participants interface. So he has that direct follow-up on whether his answer was good or not. I don't know if this answers your question. And I'm just looking if there are any other questions. And I think that was all for questions. Now, before I show you how to use it asynchronously, I'm just going to show you a few options in terms of reporting. So as you can see at the bottom here of my event, I can decide to export all of my results to an Excel file. I also have the possibility to see it in a grid format, which will give me a just line per line item. Let's look at it together. So here I have my number of participants, the amount of questions and the total amount of questions, then a line per line of each question and their answer to each question. Question 1, whether it was good or not, and then I have that for all my students here. If you want to get a more general overview of the input that you received from the class and how well they did, a way of doing that is to go into the report format here. So when I go into the report format, I just click on it, and that's going to give me really a screenshot of all the answers that I received. So here I know that 84% got the first answer correct. I get a screenshot of where you locate in Brazil on the map, as well as how many good answer I got per option in this question. So those were the the reporting options. And now I'm going to just take a little bit of time to look at your questions now. And now let's see. Can you show how to moderate the answers in the word cloud? Absolutely. So if I create a word cloud, what did you think of the previous year? And I'm just going to go ahead and start that directly. Some of you should still be connected to the event. Oh snap, I forgot to actually activate the moderator. Sorry about that. So as you see now on my right-hand side, this is just me sharing, but I can decide to then show the words or not in the word cloud, for example. I have the option of showing or trashing the word before I make it appear in the word cloud. And then I can filter per unread or read. So that is my options to then, if I want to put one in the garbage, or I want to put it on the screenshot there, I have both options. So that's the moderating option there. I hope that helps. Now let's see, any other questions? Can you add videos to support your questions as well? Yeah, absolutely. You can add a video. In order to add a video here, you would just go to the right. And then in the last question type here, I would add audio or video. And then I can either put a link to a YouTube video here, or I can select an MP3 or MP4 file. And then all I would have to do is save the question, and it would appear here as any other question. And I could order it or insert it into my presentation in the same way that I showed you earlier on. I have a question here that I'm not sure that I understand. Creating slides is also hit or miss in the questions function. More options with the graphics would be helpful. If you have a bit more context about that question, I'd be glad to try to help you with it. I'm not sure I understand it at this point. Some of my students get asked to install the app to participate. Why? So there is no application for Wooclap, so there really is no need to install it ever. The only reason they would need to connect is if, as I showed you, the authentication was activated here, and then a form of authentication was activated. But this is a option that you have. You can either let them be anonymous in the way that we were at the beginning of this presentation, activate one of the authentication methods that I showed you or not. Can you please show again how the moderating option works? Absolutely. So I would go onto my question here. So first I create my word cloud question. Then I would edit the question here, and I would activate the moderating option. So once I've launched that question, then on the right-hand side here, I get all of the options that have been given to me by the students, and I have the opportunity to then either add them to the word cloud. So Génial here, I can add, and it's going to appear, unless I can then trash it if I want to. And then, for example, new opportunities, if I don't want that to appear, I can then press on that. Hope this answers your question. And I'm just going to go through one last functionality that I think is important for all of you, and then I'll of course put a bit more time aside for your questions and be happy. Thanks first of all for your participation and all your questions. Glad to see that you're interested in asking yourselves the right questions. So another way, and this is an important way as well to use Wooclap, is also through the participants pace file. So you would do this by going into the participant pace tab. This allows you then to create asynchronous questionnaire for your students, as well as to make some resources available to them. So here, for example, if I want to get your feedback on this training session, I could go ahead and create a questionnaire, feedback, open training. Then I would press on select. As you can see, the same options are available to me as we saw earlier on. And what I can do is also import questions. So here I'm going to go ahead and import some questions just so we can save a bit of time. And I'm going to import them from an event that I previously created. And then you'll see they're all imported here. So now I have all my asynchronous questions that are part of a questionnaire. And when I press on save, I have the possibility to either publish it now or publish it later. And I'll publish it a bit later. And if you feel so obliged as to give me a bit of feedback on our training session, I'd love that. That'd be great. So I won't make it available just yet, but you'll get some extra resources, and I'll tell you a bit about that later. So as you can see, my questionnaire is there, and I can also make some other resources available here, and I can go ahead and add some documents. For example, if I want to give some extra resources, give some slides, some extra explanations, maybe an article, and I'm going to attach some extra resources for you so you can look at those later if you want to. And go back to the vote tab, and maybe now I can take some more of your questions. Let's see. Can the students answer to a question on their own time, and then you get the results? Well, hopefully I just answered that question, but yes, most of this presentation was on the live version of Wooclap and how to use it in class. But again, just for the sake of repetition, in the participant space tab here, you can create a questionnaire that you'll receive the answers to later. And the answers you'll also receive in the same format that I showed you here at the bottom. So you can see them in a grid format or in a report format. Again, either to see per student or to see a general view of what all of the students answered. Now, going back to your questions. Question from Eva. What, with competition mode switched on, do you automatically publish the results, or can you time it as a presenter? Is it possible for a participant to speak, be seen, or chat only? Let me see. Is it possible for first question, I'm gonna go back to it. Do you automatically publish the results, or can you time it as a presenter? No, you publish the results once you've clicked on it. So if you remember here, if I go back on my question, I'm only gonna publish the results, or if you mean, display the results, only once I've clicked on this trophy that's at the bottom of the screen here. So I hope this answers your first question, Eva, and thank you for the question. I'll move on to the second question now. Is it possible for a participant to speak, be seen, or chat only? So this really is a question more that has to do with the video conferencing tool that you're using. So Wooclap you'll be using by sharing your screen on which you have your presentation. The rest then is supported by, for example, here we're on a tool called Livestorm, but if you were doing it in Microsoft Teams, they could just participate by opening their microphone on Microsoft Teams. So hopefully that answers your second question. The authentication, is it a code when switched on? No, the authentication when switched on just means that once they've connected through the link or the QR code, they'll have to connect through the authentication method that you've activated. So as a reminder here, when I activate authentication, I can either have students log in through their email, either log in through social, which means Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, or Microsoft, or through single sign-on if that's been activated in your university. Can participants add info to a slide or presenter only? No, it isn't possible for participants to add info to a slide. It's only something that you've created and you're presenting. Can you edit videos or only insert the entire video? You can only insert the video. You cannot edit it. Is the type size in the word cloud a prioritization? That's a really good question about the type size, and maybe I can give you a bit more look into it now. So as you can see here, for example, the word challenging has been made bigger, and this has to do that the more recurrent a word is, the more it comes up, the bigger it's going to get, which really makes it that visual tool. So the tendencies are really being shown visually in a bigger format. So just to show you this, for example, you see challenging was the biggest word here. And when I go into the grid format, as you can see, challenging comes up 3 times, which means that it's going to be shown the biggest. Thank you for that question. Is the type size in the word cloud a prioritization? No, sorry, that was a previous question. Can we correct the incorrect words in the word cloud? Edit them and not delete them? No, at the moment, your only possibility would be to delete them. I suppose you could ask your students to maybe resubmit them. That is a possibility. Just one last use case maybe I wanted to show you before letting you finish your day or continue your day as we're in very different time zones. I had some interesting use cases I thought I'd show you. And so yeah, I think it was important to talk about the principle of increasing attention, and I know we spoke about it a lot today, and captivating and holding on to your audience's attention. And I think one takeaway you should have from today is that it's important to vary your pedagogical practices, to really switch up your activities, to avoid creating a repetitive pattern really within your courses. So just have the variety of questions we have really give you that option to interact with your students in very different ways. And so there's just some examples of questions, like a sorting question here, for example, a multiple choice question, and just another notion that I wanted to talk about that's interesting as well. Consolidation is very important, and active engagement. So it isn't enough to passively listen to a class. A student has to activate his brain and recover the information. And the key is also the moment at which you have your students interact. So as you can see here, this is a brainstorming question. It can be a very interesting question to ask, either at the beginning or end of a class, to get your students talking about a general notion and classifying their ideas as you're receiving their input. And then, for example, at the end of a class, I could also, or at the beginning of a class, after a previous notion that I'd learned, I can ask, so what were the main takeaways of this lesson? And just get my word cloud going so I can comment that input. And it's a way of getting everybody's input. As I said, that can be quite difficult when you're in a big setting. Let's say you have 40 students. How do I interact with all of them? I think this is a great way. Every student can see his words coming up on the screen. It's quite anonymous in that sense, and it gives you, the possibility to interact with everyone. And I'll just use some of this time I still have now to answer some more of your questions. I'm also going to make the the class we just created available. So don't hesitate. Can we correct the incorrect? No. Where is it? There it is. All right. And I'm going to publish right now the resources and the asynchronous questionnaire that we created together. So if you're so kind as to click on the link that's going to be sent to you, you'll be able, so this link that you'll see here, you'll be able to answer a participant's PACE questionnaire that we created together earlier on. I've also attached some extra resources for you that have some interesting articles on how to get started with Wooclap, as well as some different information and some more articles as well on just interesting use cases. We communicate a lot with our partners, and we try to document some interesting ways that they use Wooclap. So there's definitely some interesting reads in there. And yeah, I'm happy to take any more of your questions if you have any. Any questions? Can the competition mode be used to facilitate group work? Can participants be placed in groups with top performing group is displayed rather than top participant? Unfortunately, that's not possible. You can't have multiple people behind one group. I suppose one way you could do that is to do it through usernames and have each group participate through one interface, for example. And they would each call themselves group 1, group 2, group 3. And then you would be able to see that on the podium. I don't know if that answer makes much sense to you. I hope it was clear. And I'll wait for any more of your questions. Happy to answer them. One thing that I like to say also before, how can I access free tutorials? I'll answer that question first because it's a good question. So we have a great YouTube page that has some tutorials, how to create your event in 3 steps, as well as how to use Wooclap in its various integrations. And so feel free to just type in Wooclap into YouTube, and maybe some links will be sent to you in the chat. And as well as there, let's say, written tutorials and in our help center that are very useful, well documented with images and step-by-step processes. Yeah, and before I leave you, I think I'd just like to say I recommend taking some time, whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's 40 minutes, whatever time you have available to you in the next days or weeks, to create some questions on our platform and apply some of the notions that we went over today. As you saw, Wooclap's a very intuitive tool, very easy to use, so don't hesitate to play around with it, try out the different questions. Try it out on a colleague or a family member, or just on your own. And yeah, thank you all so much for your presence today and your participation. I hope this session was of value to you, and that you're already thinking of what interactive questions you'll integrate into your next presentations. And in the next hours, you'll also receive an email with a replay of the webinar and some extra helpful resources, also on that link that I sent you, and a form as well to complete if you want to receive a Wooclap training certificate signed by myself. And this certificate will attest that you've participated in this training session. And of course, please feel free to share it with your institution, your colleagues, or on social media. I'll stay here for any extra questions that you have, but thank you so much for all your questions and your participation today. Thank you for all your kind words as well, and thank you as well to all of my colleagues that gave me a lot of help today. And for those of you that are still in the session, maybe we could finish with our final word cloud. One word to describe today's session. Yeah, start it right off. Informative, energizing, awesome. Only words I like to hear. I see a funky bee appearing there as well. Not sure what to think of that one. More of it. I'll give you one more minute for those of you holding into the last second, making the most of the word cloud. See, there's no more questions. Happy we're able to answer all of them. Thanks again to everyone. You're great. All right. Well, thank you to everyone for your time today, for all your participation and all your questions. It's lovely being with you, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye.